I'm Judy Stiles. Thank you for joining us this week for Newsmakers. We've heard a lot about cybersecurity, concerns about security on the internet, and so forth. Well, today we're focusing on an aspect that affects businesses, small businesses in this region, a program coming up that's going to help people learn a lot more about it. Joining me, I have Wright and Jason Rincker. Thank you very much for being here today.
Thanks for having us.
Now, you're both involved in a program with the Small Business Technology Development Center here through Missouri Southern and region, and I want to start off with kind of the information about this program that's planned, and then we'll talk and give the audience a little bit more about what we're talking about with cybersecurity.
Perfect.
So, who would like to explain what's happening here next month?
You want me to? Well, the Missouri Small Business and Technology Development Center, as well as some local businesses are coming together. The Small Business Administration has issued a directive that cybersecurity is a very important topic that we need to be educating small business owners and even consumers in general about. And so we are coming together to create an event, a very educational event for area businesses, and going to educate them how, on a 360-degree view, cyber crime affects them and their businesses.
Great. And this is coming at the end of March.
It is March 30th, and it will be at the End Zone facility on the campus of Missouri Southern.
Great. Okay, so we'll follow up more details later about how people can attend, but I think for the viewers, they're probably interested. You know, we hear a lot about on the news about breaches of security. We had the Equifax problem. People, everybody's finding out about you. They don't think about the aspect of businesses, perhaps, because they're the door for a lot of people's information going through small businesses. So when you talk about this problem from both of you, from your perspectives, is this something that you have seen, that you're part of this team putting this together? You're representing a bank?
Absolutely. You know, my focus within the bank is I assist business customers, and part of that focus is helping them mitigate fraud risk. And we have customers daily who are affected by cybercrime, crime in general. And you know, you think that you're covered because your funds are in a bank, but depending on what type of crime it is, sometimes you're hard pressed to be protected when you think that you are.
So the bad guys are still out there.
Yes,
you have to take many steps. And Jason, you're with Stronghold Data. Tell me a little bit about how you're involved in this.
Stronghold Data is a local technology services company, and we have partnered with other area technology companies to join, the financial team from Arvest and other area banks to really talk about cyber awareness. From a technology perspective, there are threats every day, and most businesses don't realize that they're under attack because they sometimes think, well, I don't have anything that's of importance to these attackers. I'm not the Equifaxes, I'm not the Home Depots, I'm not these large institutions. That is really what makes them vulnerable, is their thoughts that they're not, their information is not important to them, because there's two things that they're facing. Is number one, someone that may want to extrapolate that data that they have from a business, whether that is to use that, like they have intellectual property or list of customers, so they could maybe use that in a competition, could use that as a gain, a step ahead. But then you have those that are dealing with ransomware, and that data that they're locking up, and that's what ransomware is they lock you out. And those businesses think that their information may not be important to somebody else, but it's definitely important to them. And they're faced with either paying a ransom or restoring from backups. That's really the only two options that they have. And it's not so much the ransom that affects them, it's the disruption of that event that causes a lot of businesses to struggle, to really stop focusing on their primary, if you will, widget, whatever that product or service that they're delivering. And there's a statistic out there that says that most businesses that are down 10 days or more, and down meaning like some sort of technology event that their business is affected for 10 days or more, 93% of them go out of business, and about 50% or more are filing bankruptcy within 6 months. And it's this disruption that really causes that. And this is why this committee was put together, because agencies, as Karma mentioned, the SBA, specifically here on the campus of Missouri Southern, the SBTDC, really wants to educate and provide information to area businesses, whether they're small, medium, or large. This is information that they should be able to take back and really, either from a business owner or maybe somebody that's within the business, start protecting themselves.
So it gives them a chance to kind of evaluate, where are we doing what we need to be doing in many cases?
And in a lot of areas, they don't even think those are areas that need to be evaluated, such as HR policies or insurance policies or, dual control policies to help protect their businesses.
Right. So they think, oh, I've got that protection on my computer. Norton's going to check everything. I don't have to worry about anything else.
Correct.
And going from there. The numbers, we don't have a representative from law enforcement here, but you mentioned cases. Is this a climbing, escalating case, nationwide, regionally? I mean, what sort of instances are we looking at?
The numbers are staggering, as you see. Even when you look back at 2016, there's a website from the FBI where you can go and report claims, and on that website they're claiming that in 2016 that they were receiving like 800 claims a day. The ransomware that is out there is $1 billion industry. And it continues to increase. We hear talks about like Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies that are out there, and these are those payment mechanisms that are used in these ransomware events.
Virtually non-traceable.
Yes, they're not going to an Arvest bank or their local bank.
They're getting lost in that massive system of computers and the internet.
And again, going to obtain cryptocurrency to pay ransomware isn't just something you can, do very quickly. There's a process that you have to go through. But because that industry is so big, these ransomware, these bad actors, if you will, they make it easy to pay. They give 800 numbers you can call. There's a help desk. There's YouTube videos out there that tell you how to obtain cryptocurrency. They do want to get paid. That's how this continues. This scheme continues. It is getting so rampant. You mentioned like some of the statistics. I kind of think it's funny for those Grey's Anatomy fans, and they ended their season with having a similar event, at the hospital. In 2016, there was a hospital in California that was asked to pay ransomware, and they were relegated to treating patients with pads and pencils. There was another one up near Kansas City that was asked to pay this ransom. They asked if they could pay, half of it. Well, they got half of their data back. Black Friday, San Francisco was faced with a ransomware event, and it disrupted their transit system, all from these kinds of events. And you've heard me talk a lot about ransomware, but there are other ways that impact businesses in a fraud situation where they try to obtain information. I think you kind of touched on it in your opening. Phishing emails where they try to obtain credentials of you personally or you from a business perspective. Those credentials they will either leverage immediately or they will try to find other ways. We see it where once they obtain those credentials, they try to elevate themselves through the system, and take advantage of maybe somebody's account. There's wire fraud and
business email compromise is a huge one. We have customers that have experienced it. Somebody has gotten those credentials and has generated an email account as a CEO or some high-level official to request their controller or bookkeeper or whomever has control over those financial pieces, saying, can you please send a wire for this invoice, and it needs to go out today. And a lot of times when those individuals are watching the progression of how the emails go, they know when the business owner is going to be in a meeting. So they are sending these fake emails because they have the Outlook calendar. They know
somebody's not going to be there to ask.
Yeah. And so controller, bookkeeper, whomever is sending the wire out per the owner's request. And once those funds are gone, there's no way to get them back. And then, knowing that the business owner is going to come back and check emails, they'll go in and delete that trail before anybody ever knows it happened.
Now, is one of the challenges for small business is just the fact that maybe they don't have the resources? Major corporations probably have huge departments that do nothing but cybersecurity and hire people to keep an eye on the system all the time. Is that a challenge for small businesses? You don't have that person in the back room per se to say, I'm checking everything all the time.
Absolutely. I mean, that is a big challenge from a financial perspective. We see that all the time, in the businesses we are working with, because there's so many other demands on that dollar, and we try to work with them to get the best spin for that dollar to protect them. This education seminar that we're putting together goes a long ways. There's a lot of little things a business owner can do that maybe won't cost them a whole lot, and that's the benefit of this seminar here, is really understanding how big a picture cyber awareness or cybersecurity is. It's more than just an IT presence. There's a great group of guys at Stronghold Data, very smart, a lot smarter than me, that their job is to constantly try to find ways to stay ahead. But it's just a constant struggle, and then we have to also help clean up. So if a business owner can come in and learn some of these items from not only a technology perspective, but how can we protect it from an HR, as Karma mentioned, there needs to be policies and procedures in place, acceptable use policies, and we have a great a local resource that's going to be speaking on that. Business owners also need to understand that there's cyber liability insurance out there, and what are the pros and cons, and what kind of questions should I be asking from my insurance agent. There's a lot of cost involved with a data breach. For those of us that's ever been a part of it, you receive a letter, notifying you of the breach. There's a cost associated with that, so that's where asking these questions of this local insurance provider is going to help them understand. From a financial panel, we have 4 different banks that have come together to really put a good panel together to allow those attendees to ask questions like Karma was just sharing. The information technology group here locally, from Stronghold Data, SNC Squared, Oxen Technologies, and Representative Charlie Davis is, he's a computer savvy individual, and they're all coming together to allow the public to ask questions of them. So the purpose of us being here today is to really share the opportunity that any business owner, any person within a business can come and learn how this affects them, how it affects their organization, what can they do to better themselves, whether, again, back to your original question, Judy, from a financial perspective, do we need to start budgeting more? Do we need to allocate more resources over here? What are some of that low-hanging fruit, if you will, that we can implement immediately? In my opinion, one of the biggest things is start educating yourself and remove that connotation that, why do they want me? They don't want me. That website that you had shown from the FBI, there's a quote on there, and it comes from an FBI official that basically alludes to the fact that if you're not thinking you're under attack, you're mistaken, because it's a constant barrage basis.
So it's out there everywhere, and we're hearing the big stories on the big news, but there's a lot of behind the scenes. And we're talking about small business. It doesn't have to be a brick and mortar business. It could be somebody working a home business, internet, selling from their home and things like that.
Absolutely.
So the definition of small business is very wide.
Well, small, again, this isn't, I don't want to just limit it to small business. We know that they don't necessarily have a large IT resource on staff or in their building, so yes, they would benefit. But those medium businesses, they maybe have an IT staff, and that IT staff may be doing a phenomenal job, but have they sent their HR representative to understand those policies and procedures? Have they sent that CFO that's handled their financials to really understand? Maybe they have, but that's why this panel is so important, to bring all of this information at one time. In fact, to keep it at a half-day event, we even had to trim it down on all the different areas that would really be important to a business individual, whether that is small or medium or large.
I'm curious on the HR side we've mentioned. So explain when someone's hired, it's not just the owner, it's the employees, the people working for this organization, understanding policies, procedures.
It absolutely is. Something people really don't think about is your most susceptible link is that employee opening an email and clicking on something that is malicious. That is a lot of way that ransomware is coming into your system. And again, with the business email compromise and what have you, it's the unsuspecting employee who thinks that, oh, I won the Publishers Clearinghouse. Look, I'm gonna, it's those things. And it might be what we would consider common sense, but unless you are educating your employees or you have proper policies in place, you're not protecting yourself to the best ability.
Right. So that warning that you get when you work for a company or university, that if it doesn't look legitimate, don't open it.
Yes.
To add to what Carmen was saying from an HR standpoint is, not only do you need to educate your employees, but from a legal perspective, from an insurance perspective, and I'm not an expert by any means in those areas, and that's why we're bringing them to the table again.
There, right.
But to protect yourself, you have to have some controls in place. I know our friends in the financial sector, they go through a lot of training. Those compliance-heavy industries like being a CPA or the healthcare industry, they do a lot of training because there's already a lot of controls there that they have to educate those employees on a regular basis. There was a case out of California where a medical institution was trying to file an insurance claim on a data breach. That breach was caused by a human error, and they were looking at those training records. Where are those employees trained? So depending on that insurance policy, I mean, there may be exclusions in that policy that limit a payout if it is caused by an internal error. There was another case, the University of Central Florida had a large data breach, and a class action lawsuit was looking at being filed. And one of the first things the attorneys asked for in that filing was training records. Let's see how you're training your employees. So again, these are those kinds of questions that businesses that have employees on staff, as Carmen mentioned, they are a weak link from a technology perspective. They need to understand what needs to be done and why it is important, maybe from an insurance standpoint, from a legal standpoint. I mean, if you're deleting things or doing things that would make it hard to do forensics, and that's one of the topics I want to cover in this presentation, is having a response plan. You need to have some sort of what we call business continuity plan in place. You have to have it's an incident response plan where who do we call? Do we need to get in touch with our bank? Do we need to get in touch with a media of some sort? Obviously, smaller businesses don't have the same plan as a much larger business. But to your point, Judy, we hear about those large breaches, and a lot of those can be traced to a human error. Most recently, like the Equifax breach. What we don't hear about is the ones that are affecting Joplin, Missouri, or some of the other communities, because a lot of times people are embarrassed to talk about them, or they're so focused on really fixing the problem so they can get back to business. So having a plan in place before will help you get back on your feet faster. I've used the example many times in education. We teach, we do fire drills, and we do, tornado drills, maybe even active shooter drills. But we need to really train not only, our children, our employees, all of these things here. And it's important to have those in place. And one of the speakers is going to be teaching businesses, and talking about that incident response and business continuity.
So you have that already planned and ready to go. The world is so interconnected nowadays. I mean, everybody has smartphones, you have the computers, and seems like there's a lot of more avenues. It's not just the person sitting at their desk with their computer, and probably from that aspect, security is a big concern. I mean, we can deposit checks at the bank without even having to bring a check in.
Absolutely, take a picture of it, and it's there.
So there's more concerns. Probably growing technology also brings along more concerns along as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. As faster, better payments, electronic payments are increasing, the opportunities for being compromised increase as well. There is an annual survey done yearly of Association for Financial Professionals. And in that annual survey, 74% of respondents say that they have had attempted or actual fraud perpetrated against them.
They're seeing those cases.
And, you know, check fraud is very high up there, but the next is wire fraud. And again, any time that you have that electronic payment source, you are highly susceptible. And now that we have the apps on the phone and, you know, tablet access or what have you, you're more susceptible.
There's another way for someone to get into that system to try to find
Absolutely.
out. So for the business who has those types of options for their customers, they need to be aware, what do I do?
And you know, there are definite safeguards. So we have secure factor authentication. It's two-factor authentication. So it helps protect them and gives them that added level of security. But not everybody utilizes that. And you know, certainly those smaller sole proprietors that think that they're not susceptible to somebody wanting their data or what have you are actually highly susceptible to it for that reason alone, because they don't often take those safeguards available to them.
That extra step.
The other piece too that I would like to add to that is businesses sometimes don't realize how connected they are, as you're talking, not only from a device standpoint, but also from a vendor standpoint, where we could compromise maybe a small business, but it's not so much the small business we're after. Maybe it's who they're doing business with.
On up the chain of
Correct.
their connections.
The Target breach, if you remember that from years ago. The Target breach, when you really look at how they got in, came from an HVAC vendor. Okay, so I may leverage a weak link. That's what I'm looking for. I'm just looking for the weakest link to get in.
So Target had a big wall that couldn't get through.
Correct.
They found another way in.
They found another way in, and that is where, you know, some small business owners and those medium business owners is think about the customers you're working with. Who are your customers? Are your customers, would they be a high value target to somebody? Or would their information be important to somebody that was wanting to leverage that data? And so if I can use you as a weak link, we're able to get in that way as well, because we are connected, as you said. With the email, like you were talking about earlier, there's also some trust that goes on. Is, you know, maybe if I send you an email, Judy, you might be apt to open it more so than somebody you don't know. So as kind of Karma was, you know, talking about earlier, if I can compromise your contact list, right?
You get these names of why are they sending me this?
So again, it may not. We may think that our information is not important, and that's that piece that I really hope that when they come away from this seminar, this half-day seminar, that they understand that it is important. This is something that's very, very impactful to their business, whether they, you know, want to believe it or not. But
now, as both of you have been working on the committee planning this, are you finding that it's a bigger problem that you thought, or you're getting the brains are getting together planning it? Are you saying, well, I've got this area, I have this area, and it is really a lot bigger than we think, because you see your own little specialties, you see banking, you see data, you know.
Absolutely.
So the bigger picture is a lot bigger, perhaps, than people realize.
It is, and you know, as Jason has mentioned, we have several area IT firms and several financial institutions, and we have that HR piece and the insurance piece, and you know, we have come together, and as we have sat on these committee meetings and what have you, it's staggering. You know, I see the financial piece, but hearing just some of those data breach statistics and response issues and not having a contingency plan or a business continuity plan, it's essential that we all come together and do what we can.
So what would you like people to take away from this the most? If somebody's watching and say, I'm going to attend, what am I going to leave with? What would you like they're going to leave this program with?
I would hope that when they leave this program that they realize how impactful many areas within their business are towards a cyber hygiene, if you will. You know, they really need to think this through and have plans in place, have proper controls, and really understand that as we are more connected, as we are more dependent on electronic and those devices, how it could, that downtime, that interruption that of their business, their day-to-day procedures, takes them away from their true goal, which is producing that product or that service. And I don't think our communities around here in the Midwest can afford to lose any more small businesses. We're all dependent on those in the communities. And by having a half-day event, bringing all this information into one sitting, it makes it a valuable use of time for that business owner, for that business professional, for that leader in that business.
I know you have a logo that they're showing up on the screen, Cyber Awareness 360, and talking about the ties of tech, HR, legal, financial, insurance, showing the different areas. But that gives us, once again, a chance to talk about it. March 30th. It starts out in the morning. It runs, lunch is included.
Absolutely.
So for $20, and information on registration, and also the Small Business and Technology Development Center can provide them some information on registering for this as well.
That is correct. And I also want to point out, as you saw on that flyer there, we are receiving a lot of support from the area chambers that have come and expressed their willingness to support us, especially the Joplin Area Chamber of Commerce and a few others, as you saw on that list. And we're expecting even more to come on board, because they even realize how important it is to educate everyone in this topic. When you hear cybersecurity, again, it's just sometimes, oh, that's something technology, and that's something we deal with at Stronghold Data on a regular basis. But again, there's more to it than just that technology, aspect.
Side.
Yeah, there's a human side.
Well, I'd like to thank both of you for visiting today on the program, providing some information so the audience is aware of what's happening.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you so much,
Thank you.
Judy.
And I'd like to thank you, the audience, for joining us this week on Newsmakers. I'm Judy Stiles. Hope you can join me again next week at the same time on the station. We'll see you then.